Hello and welcome on board in Nostromo, because today we're going to look at the 1984 game Alien. And the game Alien, well, it was published by Mind Games, heading part of the Argus Press software empire for the Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum in 1984, and then later ported for the Amstrad CPC in 1985. And if you haven't heard of the Alien film, why? I mean, Alien, in my opinion, is really one of the best and most probable science fiction films ever made by the very talented Ridley Scott. I mean, it's a bit like Jaws, but in space. And the game, well, it also came with a quick summary of the film in the excellent booklet that came with the game. I like that. And let me start by saying, first of all, that Alien is a very good game indeed, and a very faithful reproduction of the film to boot. I mean, it's always been the case until now that games licensed for films or TV have been marriages more of convenience than made in heaven. I mean, games like Knight Rider, for example, that I recently reviewed, that was more like Shite Rider. It certainly makes me wonder really if software houses view name license as anything except a license to print loads of bread from the gullible viewing public. Thankfully, this is definitely not the case with Alien. And anyone who has seen the film will know that the situation gets incredibly tense once the hunt for the alien gets underway in the ship. So, let's get started by looking at the Commodore 64 version first. But I have to say, all three versions are very similar here. Alien is basically a menu-driven game. The player is put in charge of all the crew members of the Nostromo. The game starts with one crew member being killed by the alien, which mirrors the death of Cain when he gives birth to the alien in the actual movie. You then move the characters around in a map grid representation of the ship as they search for the alien. And littered around the map are various objects that are useful, such as nets, incinerators, pistols and oxygen tanks. And you can order one of the crew members to pick up such objects and use them when they're needed. Now, based on the current situation, the emotional status of the crewmen can actually change. Their emotional status can range from confident, stable, uneasy, shaken, hysterical and even broken. And this can mean that the crew members will not always obey your orders and can be frozen by fear or unwillingness to enter a hazardous situation. Ordering characters to pick up weapons can positively affect their emotional status and make them more likely to follow orders. And I suppose the opposite can be said if a character is sent off alone, which can have a negative effect on their emotional status, causing them to perform poorly. Furthermore, just like the film, one of the crew members is secretly an android, and he will turn on the other crew. And also, when the crew is reduced to 3, then there's the option of activating the ship's self-destruct sequence and escaping in the Narcissus. And gosh, you know, tension and suspense, they are very difficult properties to convey in any medium, let alone a computer game from the 80s, which gives you a quaint little flickering blob when you wanted a chainsaw and a squeaky little note when you wanted a massive pipe organ blast. So, hats off to the author in succeeding in creating a tense environment in this game. Well done. Anyway, back to the game. As I already mentioned, the action starts when the first member of the crew is having his internal organs rearranged by the alien bursting out of his chest. And then the hunt is on for this big bastard with the remaining crew members, one of which is an android whose main aim is to keep the alien alive, just to complicate matters. Now there are 35 different rooms on 3 decks to search, but all the rooms are also connected by ducting which the alien uses freely, but which most of the crew are loath to enter. Don't blame them. And what I can tell from the game, there are basically two ways of destroying the alien. It is possible to herd it into an airlock and then blast it out into space, or it is possible to leave the alien on the ship, set the auto-destruct mechanism and escape in the shuttle Narcissus, provided that you have Jones the cat and no one else is left alive on board the ship. That flipping cat. Actually, it soon became clear that my attempts to find the alien were of secondary importance to my need to find that bloody cat. And it was only after my third abortive encounter with the little scumbag that I sussed I had to have a cat box in order to catch him. By which time, of course, Ripley was the only person left on the ship, and I have to say our morale was getting distinctly frayed. And as I've already mentioned, another feature of the game is the way in which the responses to orders are affected by the personality of the crew and how much they've had to suffer. So chasing that bloody cat, trying to find that bloody cat certainly didn't help Ripley, did it? All that time wasted that I could have been killing that alien. No, I had to go for that bloody cat. I also found that Parker, the engineer, remained quite confident throughout the game and pretty responsive right up until the alien sneaked up behind him and bit his jugular out. Ripley, on the other hand, she freaked out so much at the sight of a dead body that I had to take her halfway around the ship to avoid coming across any more. Not surprisingly, perhaps, my involvement with the characters in the game grew as the number of the crew dwindled. Aye, they got chomped by that big A, and the game became more of a role-playing game than a strategy command game, until there was only one character left, and I started identifying completely with that character, becoming first jumpy and then downright scared as I went into yet another no-exit storeroom hunt for Jones the cat, that stupid cat. When you're playing with the entire crew at your disposal though, you do get quite the feel of being in overall command. I even felt at times as though I was on the ship as the unseen commander. The screen shows you a plan of the deck you're on, or the ducting in the immediate vicinity of anyone who is unlucky enough to be down there. You are given a menu of options to choose from. The main menu has the crew to order individually and the 3 deck plans. If you choose a crew member, your menu then changes, giving possible movements for that member, and other possibilities such as picking up weapons, entering the ducting and catching the cat. And in particular situations, then there are special options which will appear. For example, starting the self-destruct system when you're in the command centre. The screen also displays reports on the condition of the crew member you've selected, whether there is any damage to the room you're in or whether the grill is open. Important because it shows if the alien has been there or not. You also get the occasional message from the mother, the ship's computer, telling you useful stuff like the fact that while you have just been picking up the cat box, one of your crew members has taken compulsory redundancy from the monster. You know, that kind of stuff. Now, playing the Commodore 64 version, I certainly found the sound effects helped to create the suspense. I mean, the fact that you cannot see where the alien is, but keep coming across evidence of its recent passage, and hear it moving around adds to the atmosphere of groping around in the dark. Again, a very faithful recreation of the film's feel. Because, you know, it's a real-time game. The little scrapes you hear of doors and grills being opened and the blip from the tracker become vital aids to your strategic planning, which is a whole new area for sound effects. Of course, as with any computer game, there are bound to be irritating oversights in the programme. I would personally have much preferred to have been able to see all the crew's positions at once, at least those on a particular deck. And I found the menu selector system a little cumbersome to use. For example, I always seem to select the wrong option and go back to the menu just when I needed to do something really vital, like catching the flipping cat. Surprisingly though, the menus themselves are very well thought out, and I rarely found myself wishing I had more options available than were listed, with the exception that it would be useful to have been able to communicate directly between the crew members. And the special option always seemed to cater for particular situations. That's certainly a good improvement. And finally, Alien is a hard game to win at. I thought I'd done really well after a single 2-hour game just to get one member of the crew off in the escape shuttle with that flipping cat. So that was a look at the Commodore 64 version of Alien. Now we're going to have a look at the ZX Spectrum version. Now, I have to say I quite like the specky look with its black background. I don't know why, but perhaps the green on black background feels more in line with the actual feel of the movie. I also like the opening soundtrack. Okay, it's not as good as the Commodore 64, but it's still pretty good. And also the in-game sound effects are okay too. Overall, it's exactly the same game as the Commodore 64. It plays the same, it's got the same story, it's got the same gameplay. So let's have a look. Okay, now we're having a look at Alien on the Amstrad CPC. In this version, it has more of a similar look, more in line with the ZX Spectrum, rather than the Commodore 64. Again, the soundtrack is okay. I mean, all three versions have slightly different tunes, but all create the correct atmosphere for the game. So let's have a look at this game. Now, Alien received a mixed reception from game critics. The Crash Review overall verdict declared it an excellent game. It should keep you going for weeks, and Hitchcock would have loved it. And the 3 Your Spectrum reviewers gave it a positive review, with the scores of 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5. On the other hand though, Computer and Video Games reviewer gave the Commodore 64 version an average score of only 11 out of 40. Saying that the game was a poor adaptation of the film and a sad disappointment, with appalling graphics, sickly colours and very little action. I can't say I agree with that. For me, it's a good game. So, there you go, that was my review of Alien. For me, Alien was retrospectively a much underrated game. And then sure, it was tremendously difficult to get into, and it was lacking spectacular graphics. But I think the game got criticised and reviewers missed the subtlety of the plot and the generation of the real tension. Alien is really a very ingenious game and should particularly appeal to wargamers who won't be put off by the relatively primitive graphics. Okay, there are some subtle differences in the appearances and the sound of all the 3 games, but they all play the same and they're all certainly worth a play. I really did enjoy playing this game, even today, and that must say something. It's a good fun game. So, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Have you ever played this game? If so, then please share your thoughts of Alien. And also, please remember to press that like button, share and even better, subscribe to my little channel. That would be brilliant if you'd done that. Again, thanks for watching, very much appreciated. Until my next video, take care and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye. Oh, and remember, nobody can hear you scream in space.